Welcome, everyone. It's the XojoTalk podcast again, and I'm Paul Lefebvre. And today, my guest is Anthony Cyphers of GraffitiSuite. And they make some wonderful classes for your Xojo desktop and web apps that let you add lots of fun new controls. Anthony, welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks.
So one of the first questions I like to start with to kind of get the ball rolling, Anthony, is to ask people, how did you first hear about Xojo? When did you start using it?
Well, I was working as lead developer for two small companies doing VB6 development. And, the time came around in the early 2000s when the panic hit that VB6 was going to reach end of life. So I started looking around for alternatives, and I found, Real Basic, and it did everything I needed and quite a bit more. So I switched both companies' code bases to Real Basic and never looked back.
Wow, so super long time user. That's like 20 years. What version of Real Basic was the first one you jumped on?
5.5.
Okay, yeah, I remember that one. So I've got a few years on you then. I think I started with 3.5 maybe. That would have been...
It's not a competition. Come on.
No, it's always a competition. Yeah, that would have been 2001-ish or so, I think. All right, yeah, VB6 end of lifing seems like something that has been going on for a really, really long time. And we still run into people that actually continue to use VB6, even in this day and age, even though there are many better tools such as Xojo available for them. Surprising.
Yeah, that community is still going fairly strong. I keep up with some of my old developer buddies from those days and talk to them, and some of them still use it, and they still post on sites like Planet Source Code, and it's pretty crazy that it's been extended as long as it has.
Yeah, it is amazing because it still only makes 32-bit apps, of course. It doesn't really do anything web related. I guess, they've got it on life support, so it still runs under Windows 10 for those people anyway. So let's talk a little bit about the tools you've been working on and that you sell and that you have had for a very long time, GraffitiSuite, which I certainly have to mention. If you were at XDC earlier this year, Anthony's tools won a Xojo Design Award in the development category. And deservedly so. They are really some slick stuff you have there, Anthony. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what these things can do, why you made them, that sort of thing?
Well, it actually started for one of those companies that I was working for when I started with Real Basic. And, we had a need to have more distinction in the user interface, especially, with buttons, because they wanted different buttons to look different ways to do different things to make it easier for end users. So that got me started with Graffiti Button, and that was the first product I released, and that was in 2003, October 2003, I think. And, it's just progressed from there. Graffiti Button did extremely well. I mean, much better than I had ever anticipated, and really gave me the drive to continue and build what we've got now.
Which is certainly way more than buttons.
Yeah. I think I might have gone a little overboard. What do you think?
Well, I know when we were evaluating this stuff and we were looking at all the many, many submissions for Design Award stuff, you had a lot of stuff to go through. I'll give you that.
Yeah, and some of it's a lot more complex than I would have liked. But the progression of time and that's got me started. Here in the last 2 years, I've started rewriting some of the older stuff and really modernizing the APIs and making things a little bit simpler and better looking and, more efficient. In just the last, 6 months, 8 months, I've been doing, dark mode support for pretty much everything so that everything, is eventually going to be dark mode aware out of the box and you don't have to change color properties and stuff. So it's some good stuff coming down.
Yes, I often see your tweets where you're kind of teasing new things you're working on and getting everyone excited. So how many controls would you say you have? You've moved from a button, one control. So just on the desktop side, how many controls would you say are in the GraffitiSuite
I
package?
don't even know. I really don't even know.
You just think them up and add them, right?
I don't keep track. I honestly don't. I think it's just that my brain is full of so much code that simple numbers disappear quickly. Because that's a question that I get asked by, people that I meet on the street, my family and friends and whatnot. Well, how many products do you have? Oh, man, I don't know. I can count them for you, but I really don't feel like it's going to be worth the time because you're going to forget in 5 minutes too. So when I think of something, or I see something in another app, or I see something online that I really, really like, I sit down and I pound out the code and I get it done.
Well, I just did a quick glance here. It looks like around 35 to 40-ish is what I see on your sidebar that has a high-level list of the desktop ones anyway. And obviously some of those look like they'll be, more advanced than others, because you've got, like a button, which might be one of the simpler controls, and then you've got toolbars and panels and graphical things and all kinds of other stuff. So lots.
And that doesn't even count the 7 new ones coming in release 30.
7 new ones.
For desktop.
There's just no stomping Anthony. He is a machine.
It's 40-hour work days.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. So that's the desktop one. And then obviously when Xojo added web support, you kind of jumped on that as well and made a GraffitiSuite version with web controls, if I see correctly.
Oh, yeah.
And so what would you say is the differences when you're doing stuff between the two? How would you compare and contrast desktop versus web?
Oh, it's massively night and day. Everything in the desktop is, with a couple of exceptions, is pure Xojo code. And those exceptions being Graffiti Calendar for desktop, Graffiti HTML editor for desktop, and Graffiti syntax editor for desktop. Those are, basically web page in a box as a custom control. Whereas, on web, everything is JavaScript, and I offload a lot of the processing and management to JavaScript so that, it's a little bit faster and it's a little bit easier to use. And you don't get a lot of the issues that you might see if you were building some of these.
Well, looking at what I see on the web section of your site, it looks like you got at least 50 web-related things sitting up there at the moment.
That sounds about right.
Now, you do a lot of the web stuff is primarily JavaScript, you said. Do you find that makes it easier to add new components or controls? How is it you go about figuring out what you think you want to add to the tool suite?
It does make the implementation for me easier because a lot of that is wrapping appropriately licensed JavaScript libraries that are ready to go. So I'm basically setting down and creating a Xojo API on the JavaScript libraries, and that's super simple, super quick, super easy for me because I've done so many of them now that I could do it in my sleep. Whereas when we talk about desktop controls and the ones that are entirely Xojo code, that's sitting down and coding it from scratch, all the drawing routines that I want to use, how I want to make things look, if I want to animate it, how I want it to animate, how I want it to feel to the user.
So one of the things that kind of put me in touch with you was seeing all your tweets on Twitter, and we'll have in the show notes links to, of course, Anthony's products here he's talking about, his Twitter feed, so you can get the teasers that I see. And I think it came up sometime. I replied to you, and I said, "Yeah, I've got to get you on the podcast sometime." And then more recently, it was brought to my attention that you're going to be attending our Xojo Connect conference next year I think that might be the first time, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be my first time. I'm really excited.
Yeah, so that'll be great. And you're going to be doing a session, not surprisingly perhaps, on GraffitiSuite. So
that's where the anxiety comes from. I'm excited to go, but I may have a nervous breakdown on stage. And if nobody laughs when it happens, I will be more upset.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of new presenters to our Xojo conferences. They, because they don't do a lot of presenting necessarily, but they know Xojo really well, so they want to, share. And they express some anxiety and nervousness. But I can say without fail, these always go wonderfully. The community there is really tight knit. Everyone wants everyone to succeed. So I think your anxiety will go away once you arrive there and you see everyone and you realize that this will be a piece of cake.
I like cake.
So it should be good. And I always take the time to meet with everyone who's presenting before. Usually on day one of the conference, we go over, just some of the ground rules and things so that when you're up there, you kind of got everything you need to know. And you just need to then, do your talk, which is what you really know, the stuff that you're going to be talking about. You're going to be talking about GraffitiSuite, maybe go over some, specific things that it does and more things that we're going to cover and have covered here. But, you've done that. You're going to know that stuff inside and out. So.
I eat, breathe, and sleep GraffitiSuite.
So about the name, what prompted a name like GraffitiSuite?
Well, I actually fought with myself for a long time over the name graffiti. When I started out with Graffiti Button, because I wanted it to reflect what I was going to do, and that was to significantly alter the user interface for developers, their experience as they implement and customize their interfaces. And the best thing I could think of was, graffiti like you'd see on a wall. Want it to stand out. You want it to be different. You want it to look good.
Cool. Well, I think the name is really catchy, rolls off the tongue well. The only problem I have is, for the life of me, I never can remember how to spell graffiti.
Well, little trivia tip. The first couple of product releases had graffiti misspelled, and I had to correct it.
No way. So it's not just me. Okay, good. I always want to single one of the F's and double the T's, and I don't know why. But
oh, yeah. I got emails about that. I had to fix that.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's a tricky word, I suppose. It's not one I tend to write too often, I guess, so I just don't see it enough.
It's a fairly obscure word for most of us, I think.
Yeah, it has a good flow, though. It's a fun word. So GraffitiSuite, you said that kind of monopolizes your time and effort. But what other sort of stuff are you able to use Xojo for?
I'd also do consulting. I've done big contracts and little contracts mostly these days. GraffitiSuite takes up the massive bulk of my time. So when I take contracts, it's usually small UI components or custom web components. I recently did an organizational diagram component for somebody, and that was a really nice addition for them. Really helped them out. I've done custom charting solutions, custom PDF, reporting software. I've pretty much run the gamut with what I can do with Xojo and web and desktop.
Nice. Well, goodness, it doesn't sound like there is enough hours in a day for you to get all the things done that you want, does it?
I don't sleep. I need more caffeine.
He says now, as he's on the podcast, probably hopped up on caffeine.
You have no idea.
Oh, that's great. Well, at the conference, there's always plenty of caffeinated beverages to keep people going. I know there's a lot of people at the conference that seem to also function on close to no sleep. So maybe you'll fit right in with that as well.
It's the developer's curse.
So what sort of stuff do you do when you're not developing in your copious free time that you have on, one couple hours every month?
Well, I like to build sci-fi models. I haven't gotten to do that in a while, but that's something I really enjoy.
Sci-fi models, like of ships?
Yeah, I've got the Athena from Starship Troopers. I've got almost every starship from Star Trek. I've got more than a few from Star Wars. I've got Battlestar Galactica. If you saw it in the shows and the TV special, I've got those. Built those and painted them, and it's a lot of fun. I've done Predator. I've done an Alien. I've done got a face hugger alien sitting here on my couch right now.
Oh, cuddly.
Yeah, I like it.
So cool. So do you have these like kits, or do you like put them together yourself with designs, or?
Most of them are kits. Some of them I've had 3D printed. Some of them I've worked up from foam and painted and, spackled and whatnot, and just really had a lot of fun with.
Well, that is really cool. One of my favorite sci-fi shows is The Expanse.
Very good show.
Yeah, very good show. I think the next season is coming up in December. When Amazon picked it up after Sci-Fi canceled it, and I forget the season. I think it's season 4 that starts in December. And they got some cool looking ships in that show, but there's not a lot of, there's not even like toys based on or anything. So I can't even buy like a pre-built little ship to put on one of my shelves like I have for a few Star Wars things or anything like that. So it's a shame that show doesn't have more available for people to, well, in my case, buy, in your case, build, I guess.
I would like to have some of those as well. I really enjoy that show.
My modeling skills, which I haven't done in many years, would consisted of making things out of Legos.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Legos.
So I do have here in my office a Lego Darth Vader TIE Fighter and a giant Lego Darth Vader that are in my office.
Awesome.
But I've never made any, actual non-Lego type model. I don't think I have the dexterity to be able to do that, or the patience to paint them or any of that stuff.
Well, then you just need to get that, 5,000 piece Lego Death Star?
Yeah, I saw that, or the super large one that's like the Millennium Falcon. That's also thousands upon thousands of pieces. They have they'll show a time lapse I've seen on YouTube of someone putting it together. And even the time lapse is, really kind of long.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, my wife was going to buy me the Death Star, and I said, "Don't you do it? I'll never get anything else done."
Yeah, that one is pretty huge. And the problem for me is, they're fun to put together, and I wouldn't mind, spending, a really long time putting it together. But the problem is when you're done with it, what do you do with it? Because it's not like I have a room dedicated to these sort of things, and some of them are big.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, that's kind of my problem right now. When we moved back from North Carolina, all my stuff got boxed up, and a lot of it's still in boxes. A lot of my models are, because we moved back into our old house, which was smaller, and we just don't have the room for it. Some of it's in storage, but my favorite pieces obviously are sitting out.
Yep, that's what happens. You get a few of the favorites that you can put out, and the rest end up locked away. When I recently redid my office this summer, I had a water leak in here over the winter, and I had to empty it out and pull out carpeting and replace stuff and blah, blah, blah. But that did force me to do a nice, purging of things in my office, right? Get rid of stuff I didn't need anymore. And one of the things I did after it was purged and then brought stuff back in and started to realize, I don't need that. I don't need that. I never looked at that in years. I don't need that. I did end up I had something that was stuck in my parents' house. It was my old, from when I was a kid, Atari 800 XL computer.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, right? And my dad had kept that. It was in the attic, and with like hundreds of the floppy disks full of games from when I was a kid, and even programs I wrote in BASIC and stuff. And so I've got all that here now, and I've set it up in my office here on a shelf off to the side of me, hooked up to a little LCD TV, so I can turn it on. I can pop a floppy disk in and bring up a game, play a game with a Atari joystick or something. Right now, I've been playing Joust mostly. I really like that game.
That is very cool.
All right, well, I want to really thank Anthony for squeezing me into his incredibly busy schedule. I didn't realize ahead of time how honored I should be to be able to get you to snag a few minutes of your time to talk to me on a podcast. So thank you, Anthony.
I'll make time for you whenever. Don't worry about it.
I am flattered and honored. So do check out Anthony's stuff at GraffitiSuite.com. That's with 2 F's and 1 T in graffiti. And I'll, of course, have links in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.